level. Because there are we in the test talking about collection. Collection is a higher degree of engagement, which means that we're shifting even more weight. And what happens when we collect the horse is that the horse compress the upper joints and make the forehand lighter. We hear very often that we want the horse to come up with the withers. Yeah, well, the distance from the withers to the ground is kind of always the same. So that's hard to get the withers to come up. But it's a feeling because they compress their upper joints, hip and stifle. Hip is the stifles on a horse. That's not the knee on a horse, it's stifle. So they are compressing them a little bit. That means that they lower their rear end. So we get a feeling that they're coming up in the front. And that's what we want to see, that the horse is showing collection. And then there are more advanced movements coming in, shoulder ins, haunches in, turn on the haunches. They're all engaging exercises that works towards more and more collection. Then third level, it's just a little higher degree of collection. We're adding on flying changes, lead changes, single ones. Fourth level, a little bit more engagement. And we're adding on half pirouettes in canter. And the turn on the haunches are now turning into walk pirouettes, which means they do it on a smaller area, which demands more collection. So everything, it's very systematic. Fourth level, that's the highest national test we have. And there are always 3 different tests at each level. So we have fourth level 1, fourth level 2, fourth level 3. And fourth level 3 is kind of similar to the first international test, which is Prix St. George. And then from Prix St. George, the rest of the tests upwards are international tests. And those are the tests that is used at all the international dressage shows. Prix St. George, Intermediate 1, Intermediate 2, Grand Prix, Grand Prix Special. So it's a lot of tests. Grand Prix is the test where we demand the highest degree of collection. And the movements that's in Grand Prix, I don't know if you've heard of Piaffe and Passage. Piaffe is a kind of a trot on the spot with a very elevated forehand because they're collected. And Passage is kind of a movement out of that where they have a lot of suspension and go forward with that same collection. If you see it, you know it. It's a beautiful movement when it's executed correctly. But all the movements, you can't execute any of these movements if you don't have the degree of collection that's necessary, because the horse has to be very strong in their carrying power and off their forehand to be able to do all those movements that's demanding in Grand Prix. So that's kind of the way it's going. And this, as I said earlier, minimum 5 years from we back a horse until there should be, I would say, do anything in Grand Prix. And that's with good riding all the time and a healthy horse. Does someone have any questions about this?
I do.
Okay, of course.
Could you give us just a really short idea of what are the main issues that you see in the let's say in all?
Well, the main issues is that when people are in too much of a hurry trying to ride tests that the horses are not ready for, that is always, it makes it really, really hard for the horses, because if they don't have the degree of collection and the balance, that will hurt the horses.
And is it possible for someone that doesn't have the same level of education as those of us that are around horses all the time, is it possible for them to see a difference in a horse that is capable and is not capable?
Who to see?
A spectator or someone that's interested.
That's why it's a little tricky, and that's why a lot of people don't like watching dressage, because it's really, really hard. But you see a difference between a training level horse and a Prix St. George horse, and above Prix St. George. Absolutely. No, anyone can see that. Because when the horse is coming to that degree of collection, that's when you get a really arch, round, beautiful neck, which we don't need in the lower levels, even if it's going to be a round and a throughness in their top line. You had a question?
Yeah, I would think a lot of what your suggestion and the call as well that we're seeing is that people are just getting on and jumping or just getting on your horse away and going. So are you, I have a friend in the community that is doing a lot of back to basics. So do you agree with doing a lot of the groundwork and having your horse ready and moving and connecting with you as the rider before you even get on?
Well, horses are so different. Each horse is each individual. Some horses demands a lot of groundwork before I'm at least brave enough to get on it. Some horses, they could care less, and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. So you just have to read the horses. But another thing you said there, jumping a lot. I said I was a jumper rider. We worked our horses flat work, not dressage.
Right.
Every day except 1 day a week when we jumped. 1 day a week. Because if we think about when we're jumping, if we want to do a jump off and we want to take short turns, if the horse is not collected, we're not going to get that horse over that jump from 2 strides. That's impossible. So that's why it was no problem for my horse to go through a Prix St. George test when I decided to make him a dressage horse, because he had all that training. I just had to fix myself to be a little taller and then be pickier to make things happen at more exact places. So it was kind of nice when I was a jumper rider, because I didn't have to be that picky. As a dressage rider, you have to be very, very picky, okay? Because, we're talking about one step. If you make a halt, it says that the halt is going to be at A. If you're a meter away from A, that's a negative modifier and brings your score down. So I think any disciplined horse should be ridden dressage if we want them to be happy and last. Any more questions?
What are some of the other problems you see with riding? You see a lot of really good riding and really bad riding. And there's some other trends now that you see a lot of.
The problem, I think, in general here in this country is that we don't have a formal education. And I said earlier, anyone can hang a flyer. And if you have ridden a second level test and got 60%, which is kind of not a very high score, but it's sufficient. They hang a flyer and then they call themselves trainers and they have no clue what they're doing. That's the problem. In Europe in general, there are all these federations, they demand that you have a formal education before you can advertise that you're a trainer. So, and that kind of gives you a little bit more, everyone speaking the same language. Here, it's 20 different ways of telling a person to do whatever with the horse. And that's a problem. That's a problem. But I'm saying it's